What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Supreme Decisions Legal Minute Podcast. And I'm your host, Supreme Decisions. Today, for those of you that can see, I'm actually at a resort style room here in Atlanta. And it was kind of an extended gift, unknowingly for the most part. Because, you had people that wanted to reach out and offer your boy an opportunity. Well, with that opportunity, I'm looking to take advantage of it in some aspects. But for those who cannot see, I am in the age of nice, gloomy, rainy day. But one of the things I want to talk about today is oftentimes we talk about the blue line. We talk about the police officer's code of silence. There's this thing that if you look at a problem long enough, you either become part of that problem or you start looking for solutions. Well, oftentimes you hear me speak about the officer's behavior, the officer's training, the officer's educational, pretty much, prowess. Today, I'm actually going to address the actual problem. Because if you spare the rod, you spoil the child. And a lot of times we're blaming blue line and we're not looking at where the blue line actually starts and where it ends. That is the police unions. The police unions are the holders of the blue line, and that's the title of today's podcast. Because the police unions created policing in a political forum. Most of us had no idea that police unions are some of the greatest or largest donors to those that are running for office, whether it's DA, president, or even local governor. Why is that? Why are they donating to these candidates for the most part? Why are they doing that? The ideal is to influence prosecutions and sway officer sentencing. Just to give you an example, Kim Porter was found negligent, using her gun instead of a taser, and killing Daunte Wright. Kim Porter was convicted of multiple counts of manslaughter because, the average sentence on manslaughter is 5 years. Kim Porter was sentenced to 2. Kim Porter had also lied to her bail bondsman. She didn't even live in the city anymore. Kim Porter had also done other things that was pointed out by the prosecutor at the time of the conviction. Kim Porter will probably only serve less than a year for murder. When you're talking about the influencing of prosecutions, the swaying of officer sentences, I did a podcast probably about 6 months ago in which I spoke about police officers murdering someone on average 10 years. And at the time, we had 2 officers that were sentenced to more than 10 years, 2. Yet, if someone murders an officer, incidental or otherwise, the average is 48 years. An officer serves on average 15 months. Say that one more time. A police officer that murders someone serves on average 15 months. Tamir Rice's murderer served less than 3 years on a 15-year sentence. Tamir Rice's murderer has an opportunity to get another job as a police officer. Today, this podcast does sound somber, but it's understanding the issue at hand. Now, here's where I'm going to start getting deeper, because even in later episodes, like I normally do for the most part, you're going to have an opportunity to not only hear, but you're going to be able to see the things that I talk about when I speak about the one thing that needs to be addressed and how to address it. The Supreme Court in 2018 offered an opportunity to sue unions. Say that one more time. In 2018, the Supreme Court offered an opportunity to sue unions. The first ones that were kind of put to the test in this were the police unions. The reason being is because the police union protected crooked cops from punishment. They kept crooked cops employed. They kept crooked cops funded and funded the lies on the stand and in paperwork. You often hear me talk about the stock language. Stop resisting. He went for my gun. I was in fear for my life. Not done in one police station. Not done or seen in one police state. These are the same exact verbiage that's used all across this country. That's a problem. Most of us don't see it that way because most of us don't want to look at it that way. Because if everybody's saying the same thing and the behavior is projected the same exact way, there has to be something done about the influence of that said thing. Now, one of the things, those of you that have worked with me before, even listened to my earlier podcast, I speak about suing a police officer in their personal or individual capacity. Because this way, they don't have the protection of a police union. They don't have the protection of their union rep, because you're not suing them as officer whatever. You're suing them as whatever. Mr. John Smith or Mrs. Johnitha Smith or Mary Smith. You're using these contexts and offering an opportunity to weaponize your defense, because once they break their policy, once they violate your civil rights, they are no longer acting as Officer Johnson. They are no longer a police officer. So taking a police officer into federal court is not the means in which getting the answers or remedy that you're looking for done. When we're looking at this for me, because like I told you, I have a lot of family members that are police officers. I have a lot of friends that are going into the policing business, because that's what this is. This is a business. Understand and make no mistakes. That's what policing is. Oftentimes people tell me, oh, well, no, police don't have quotas. Yet Trevor Noah did an entire research package on police going after quotas. Don't remember anyone getting upset with Trevor Noah for doing that. He reinforced what I was saying. Then I went back and spoke about the lies that police officers was telling, lies police officers were using to fulfill quotas. I didn't use just one city. I didn't use just one state. I didn't use just one police department. I believe I gave you 8. Trevor Noah talked about New York. I gave you 8 more, so that's a total of 9. And then I hear a lot of these people talk about, well, you don't know the situation on certain aspects of policing. But then I give you a story like Walter Chamberlain Sr. Then I give you the story of the 2 people in the car in Philadelphia. The known lying police officer. The lying officer who stood on the hood of their car firing down into this car, who said he was in fear for his life while the police were shooting at each other. These things happen. They happen because of the training. They're protected because of the unions. When you hear a California governor say, yeah, we want to go ahead and get rid of police officer complaints and negative records if they have good behavior for 60 days. That's 2 months. If they have good behavior, if they do this, if they do that, but yet they don't want to correct that behavior. I wonder why. Because whenever I speak about police are in this for revenue generation, I'm a bad guy. When I speak about the context of this actually being something greater than what they're showing us, I'm the bad guy. Whenever I'm pointing out the actual perpetrators of the crimes, I'm the bad guy. But at the end of the day, no one questions these people that are actually committing these acts or perpetrating these actual crimes. I'm the bad guy. And it's easy to look at me. It's easy to point the finger at me because I'm nobody. It's easier to say, this dude on YouTube, this dude making videos, he's nothing. Ooh, he was a criminal. Ooh, he got charged with RICO. But it's often funny how those stories don't end at those statements. But when we talk about a police officer, it's, well, we don't have all the facts. But then when the facts start coming in, it's, well, that was just one mistake. That was just one police officer. But if I'm seeing it 50 times a day, if I'm seeing the same behavior 50 times a day, and you don't have to take my word for it. Ask Officer Dingle. He's a police officer. He actually said this. Why are they not smiling at me? I turn on the TV and I see this behavior. If the police are saying this behavior exists, if the person you don't like says this behavior exists, if others are watching this behavior exist, are you telling all of us that we're all wrong? Or am I just a bad guy for saying it to you and you're being able to hear it? When you're placing policing in politics, the government itself is supposed to be on the side of the people, supposed to be on the protection of the people. But when you're placing policing in politics and militarizing those police, say it one more time, placing policing in politics, little tongue twister, and militarizing these people, who are you militarizing them for? I did a podcast. Yes, I do a lot of them, where I spoke about equal force. I gave you a military directive that is used in Iraq. I gave you a military directive that is used in Iran. I even spoke about the context of that actually being used in places such as Germany, equal force. Which means if a dude is using a cell phone, you can't use a Glock. If someone has a knife, you can't use a Glock. If someone is running away from you, the word imminent means right now, immediate, present. If a citizen who is the greatest authoritarian on the planet can't shoot someone in the back that's running away from them because they're told by law that threat is leaving you, how is a police officer using that exact same force as a servant, a public protector, whose fiduciary duty is to protect the public? allowed to shoot multiple people in their back, and it's okay. Because when you're putting policing in politics, you're having these people that are unable to differentiate the things that are necessary to not only grow, but to actually expound on and be able to think on their feet. They're trained to be reactionary. They're trained that everybody is a criminal. They're trained that everybody's out to hurt them. But I'm the problem, because I'm talking about the source of this, the protectors of this action, the protectors of this behavior, the protector of hiring those that don't think for themselves. A countrywide practice of hiring those that can't think for themselves. A countrywide practice of hiring those that can't think for themselves. Because I often tell people, there are police officers that follow me. There are police officers that listen to my podcast. I use the term or verbiage of trained attack dogs. They don't say anything because they're doing what they're trained to do. I talk about the vigorousness of defense attorneys that aren't present. Yet I still had a defense attorney on the show. He spoke about the things he does. He also spoke about where he's doing them and how and what level he does them. I've even interjected in his conversation to speak about going more in depth. These things themselves are all relevant, because at the end of the day, if you don't know or you don't understand what it is I'm saying, the reinforcement of it has to come from outside of me. I'm offering those opportunities. Just like when the police union spoke up about the incident in Arizona about Starbucks, I spoke up and I also showed the article where I didn't do the research again. The Arizona Courier did. The paper from Arizona, I actually posted it on Twitter after they told me I was bullying the police union for stating what was in the article, for stating what the Phoenix police chief said on national TV. When I spoke about the Arizona Police Department killing someone at least one every 5 days, that was their average. They were killing an unarmed citizen once every 5 days. The police chief in Phoenix said it was the citizen's fault for being shot. And then when they brought up the fact that the child was at a playground that was shot in the head by a police officer, I got flagged for bullying. I'm often asked whenever I'm posting something, is this controversial? For me, it's not, because this is educational. Controversy comes in those that don't want you understanding the truth. They don't want you knowing the truth. They want you stuck behind blinders. That's where the controversy comes in at. I don't think anything I'm saying is controversial, because everything I'm saying is out in front of you. Today could have been a red pill video or podcast, but it's not, because at the end of the day, it doesn't need to be, because you're getting the truth anyway. You're getting what's laid out in front of you anyway. The wool is coming from over your eyes anyway. Now, here's one of the things I talked about too, because I'm gonna get into this too, because the level of political funding is astonishing to me. The world shut down March, I want to say 12th or 13th, 2020. I was actually on someone else's show. Can't remember. But I was asked on the means of this during the pandemic. It wasn't in March, it was later on. What did I think was going to happen once the police are allowed to go back to policing? Well, I use psychology because understanding the dynamics of those with lower IQ levels. You take someone that hasn't been able to do what they do for, let's say, 4 months. They're going to be more aggressive. Some places, it was as long as 9 months without having the opportunity to regularly police, to regularly engage with citizens. Because the craziest number that I heard was 75% of all Americans have their initial contact with police through a traffic stop. I looked at a stat of places where most of your police misbehaving or bad actions resulted from. These were the cities where you had them lobbying for the police to stop doing traffic stops. Why? Because when I said Wren v. U.S. did not state a traffic stop was a crime. Whoops. Did the police apologists miss that one? I think they did. When I stated that Wren v. U.S., they never stated a traffic stop was a crime. They stated it was lawful, but it was not a crime. Now you have 36 major cities across this country saying we're going to stop traffic stops because they aren't crimes. When you look at the police officers, the 20 plus police officers I named a couple podcasts ago that were planting drugs on people, that were planting guns on people, they were planting fentanyl and meth on people. It wasn't just in one place. It was during a traffic stop where they created a scenario for a false search. One guy did it over 400 times. Had another guy get caught falsifying 30 plus stops himself. You have a group that are being protected to the tune of $500,000 a year on average for a sitting party. That would mean Democrat or Republican. And I'm gonna say that one more. They're offering the sitting party $500,000 a year. Now, doesn't seem like a whole bunch, but when it's loose money, when it's throwaway money, that's a lot. But I'm gonna get deeper into those numbers because the surface money is putting $500,000 in someone's pocket that they didn't earn per year. Wait, I'm gonna get there. I'm coming. $2 billion over the last 20 years for over 55 police unions across the country. The question is why? Because they're putting policing in politics to influence police policy. The states with the greatest amount of money going towards police policy influence: New York, Los Angeles, Chicago. Where are the 3 worst police departments in the country? New York, stop and frisk. Did you remember that? Thank you, Rudy. And it was actually reinforced and amplified during Rudy. It wasn't implemented during Rudy. Just understand that. The LAPD, I think we remember Rodney King. Well, at least some of us do. Chicago with the constant going into wrong homes, doing false raids, turning off body cameras, and doing other things that are outside the scope of natural policing. But again, why? Why is that okay? Why is that an option? Why is that the norm at this point? Because we're putting policing in politics. Because a year ago it was 60. This year's 150. Getting it wrong once, okay. Getting it wrong twice, all right, man, you gotta pay attention. Getting it wrong 60 times, that's intentional. And when I talked about coming out being more aggressive, what I didn't tell you was the aggressiveness stemmed from not being able to police properly. And in 2021 was the most violent year on record since they started counting, with 1,055 police involved shootings, almost triple the national average over the past 3 years. 1,055 police involved shootings. I want you to let that marinate a little bit. The most violent year, right after the year they were not allowed to do any policing. The most violent year after a year of not being able to do any policing. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't. When I talk about this, even the context of the conversation, let's put it that way, the context of the conversation becomes something different. Because I'm giving you what it is. I'm showing you what it is. I'm telling you what it is. It's up to you to actually see it. And that's where the story comes in. Because can you see what I see? Do you feel what I feel? Are you able to grasp the things I'm handing you? Better question is, do you want to grasp the things I'm handing you? Most of the stuff I'm giving you goes against the programming. Even when I talked about the propaganda, it goes against everything that you've learned to know. Still doesn't change the facts. The unions spend $10 million annually to influence law enforcement policy and thwart pushes for reform, i.e., officer-involved excessive force complaints, i.e., the police reform bill. Because while a lot of us was out, defund the police, defund the police, defund the police, defund the police, the problem is self-governing, self-control. Most of us, the majority of us, don't have it. Because one of the things that I get up every morning and I say to myself is keep the discipline. Because the discipline itself doesn't make me or break me, but it allows me to get better. Keeping the discipline allows the simple fact of getting up and going through the act of doing what it is I need to do. Keeping the discipline. That's what self-governing is. Most of us don't have that ability. As most of us would like it, it's not plausible. It's not one of those things that you can actually get to and it means something. That's a problem. That's why you can't defund the police. But you can ask for them to be retrained. But when I read you that bill, retraining wasn't in there. You can ask for a more educated subject, one that'll ask questions, one that'll actually think before pulling the trigger. That's not in there. You can ask for the things that correct that problem. But are you bringing $10 million to the table when you're having that conversation? Because the police union is. They're sitting down annually $10 million in hand and handing it to those with the greatest influence to make sure their attack dogs can continue attacking. They can make sure that their revenue generation stream can keep generating streams. Yeah, got a little notey notes over here. I want you to understand. Yeah, that's what you hear the paper rustling. Those that are, you can see the writings on the wall, or in the book in this case. When you're talking about destruction of wrongful police actions, when you're talking about these files being gone in 60 days, 90 days, why don't they do that with those that they arrest? Because again, we know those that are arrested are deemed criminals. They know that that orange jumpsuit reminds people of criminality due to the programming. If you're getting rid of a police officer's record in 60 days, why aren't you pushing for these people to be put in front of a judge within those 60 days? Why aren't you forcing the prosecutor to actually turn over discovery within 60 days? Why are you not doing these things? Because again, it starts then to become part of a speedy trial. But even in that, I can look up someone's arrest record 30 years later. Why can't I look up a bad police officer's actions 30 days later? Why are they trying to shield that? If we can go and grow into something else, why is it we can't become what's needed to become better at what we're doing? Understanding that question, just let it sink in for one moment. There's this thing that police officers use called pain compliance. You know, that's when you use a pressure point, and in their case, it's meant for de-escalation. The problem is, it's generally used in points of escalation by the police officer. Is often used as a form of torture during that said escalation. Just to give you a couple of examples, there was a police officer in Florida. There was a man having a conversation with two other police officers that were present on the scene. Sound familiar? Because I've given this story probably 1,000 times about multiple different people. Two officers on the scene, they're having a conversation. Third officer shows up and begins to escalate the situation, which this lieutenant did. Lieutenant comes over and begins to yell, scream, and forcefully push the person that the other two police officers are having a conversation with. The other two police officers has a third as a backup. So they're pretty well versed. They got it stuck. Nobody's in cuffs. They're having a conversation until it becomes a shouting match by a third person who was not there originally. One of the original officers then go and handcuffs the man to kind of separate the lieutenant, the trainer of these officers, from this said suspect. The lieutenant begins to shout, continues to push the handcuffed man, then pulls out his pepper spray. Pepper spray is used for pain compliance. This man isn't resisting arrest. This man is talking. Well, this lieutenant has one of his other cadets kind of intervene and gently, and I actually mean that from the form of she put her arm around his waist and kind of guided him away from the suspect while he had the pepper spray out before he could pepper spray the suspect, who wasn't really a suspect at the moment. This lieutenant then turned around and choked his cadet and swung at her a couple times. The police union is not only working to get this man his job back, who on his own video showed he escalated, not de-escalated, showed he violated department policy, not followed it. He then assaulted a fellow police officer who has a duty to intervene. The police union is getting this man his job back as well as back pay. The police union is not only getting this man his job back for all of those crimes and violations, but he's getting them back. The police union is getting him back pay. So even if you can't fire them, they're still getting paid. But I'm the problem. Just keep that in mind when we're talking about, why people don't like the police. Because I've said this 1,000 times. It's not a dislike of actual police. Pretty sure people love police. They have a dislike against improper policing. I don't think anybody has a problem with police. I think they have a problem with the systematic policing that is currently enforced in this country right now. That's where the problem comes in, because the union is making sure this current policy that is problematic continues. Now I'm getting ready to talk to you police officers for a second, because I want you guys to pay attention to something. Because I gave you the numbers of which they're doing to allow you to continue doing the things that you are doing. The FBI studies pull up police domestic violence is at a rate of 15 times the general public. Say that one more time, because again, it shocked me. I thought it was a little less, but I knew it was high because I knew they were the highest group of domestic violence. Didn't realize it was 15 times the general public. And the FBI deemed it actually could be higher because of the General Code of Silence. They're told no snitching. Former police officers like Eddie T. Johnson encouraged the blue wall and no snitching. Similar to the incident in Houston where the boyfriend was a firefighter. The girlfriend was a police officer. The firefighter had to shoot the police officer because she came up to his job waving her gun. Oh, you didn't hear about that in the news? That wasn't in the news? But I'm the problem. I want you to understand something. I was often told a lot of times the cover-up is worse than the crime. It never ceases to amaze me the amount of people that tell me, dude, you are saying things I've never heard. And I've been doing this 15 years. I've been doing this 20 years. I've been doing this XYZ 30 years. You're saying things I've never